All of you. I think most of you were at the Little Plover study meeting that we had over in the village of Plover. We had a fantastic crowd, even though it was 20 below zero at night. And the fact that all of you are here when it's such a cold day in January just speaks to the passion and the concern and the thoughtfulness that you all have for what's happening, not only here in the town of Rome and the town of Saratoga, but all of the Central Sands, because I see many folks who are from Portage County who are also here today. I think what's going on in the legislature is that finally folks are starting to pay attention to what's happening with our groundwater, and that we're starting to really be concerned about our natural resources and how to manage it. Unfortunately, there are also those special interests out there who know that there are people who are getting interested in managing our natural resources, and they are also at the table as well, because they either like the system as it currently is, or they actually want to take us backwards to having less regulation and less say over what's happening with our groundwater resources. And so one of the things that I've done, and I'm really happy that Representative Krug is working with Senator Coles and Senator Olson. I've been talking with them as well. I have, unfortunately, they've been able to keep me up to date. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to have a seat at the table while this bill has been negotiated. And we have heard that they're in the final stages of coming up. Last week they thought that they were near having an agreement, but that there was a meeting with Speaker Voss who told them that they have to sit down with the Dairy Business Association and WMC and come up with a compromise. And in order to get a bill through by the end of session. Now in the Assembly, there's 3 days of session left, because we've heard that the Assembly will end at the end of February. For the State Senate, we've heard our last day will be March 15th. So that does not give us a lot of time in order to make sure that we're putting together thoughtful public policy when it comes to groundwater. So I think that the direction that the Coles bill, the fact that Rob is a very conscientious legislator, I'm very happy about that. I've gotten to know him working with him in the State Senate. But I do think that in SB 291 and AB 477, we have to look at what the final version of the amendment is going to be and what type of agreement they'll have. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to get an update Tuesday on that. But currently it is written, and I'm glad Scott said that they are looking at changing the process for the SRA to not going to contested case hearing, because as it was currently written, the original bill, it would take a minimum of 7 to 10 years for an SRA to be approved, which is a long time. So with the contested case hearing piece taken out, I think that's moving in the right direction. But it still means that 2 legislatures would have to take a vote in order to approve the SRA. And that's not guaranteed that that would happen. So as we know, right now it sounds like town of Saratoga and then 2 townships over in Washera County would be automatically SRAs. But we haven't seen language yet to say how much authority the DNR would actually have in the SRA areas. So I think we have to look at what that legislation says. Also, while regulations could be tightened in the SRAs, they're loosened substantially everywhere else in the rest of the state. So while the SRA protections, if the amendment is passed and the bill is signed into law as intended, that leaves the rest of the Central Sands really without protection. And then until they would have the ability to get SRA status, as we know that could take a minimum of 3, 4, 5 years, if ever, depending on the legislature. Also, the owners of well permits that have been issued after the Lake Beulah decision can ask to have the existing conditions on their permits based on cumulative impact removed. So that would impact those permits as well. And I think, too, what's important to realize is that with the bill as it's currently written, contains the language of Senator Gudex's bill, which includes the transferability of high cap permits with property transfers. So in essence, we'd be creating a water right here in the state of Wisconsin, just like they have out west. And that potentially, that does, and we've talked to our legislative counsel, that would potentially be a violation of the state's public trust doctrine. So it would be unconstitutional. So I think that we have to be very careful in how we're proceeding to make sure that we're actually having putting good public policy that's well thought out in place. And if, what I'm hearing is true, I know that Speaker Voss does want to get something done by the end of this session, but knowing where the Dairy Business Association and where WMC is coming from, what type of trade-offs are going to have to be made in the bill in order to get that. And so, I really appreciate Representative Krug's work on this, Senator Cole's work as well, and we'll be continuing to keep in touch with them. But I think we also have to pay attention to what's in the details to make sure that we're not making a bad situation worse. And there are also some other bills that, I really want to thank so many of you for taking the time and coming down to Madison and testifying on. One was the Lassa-Jarko property rights bill. The original bill, vested rights portion would have affected local government's ability when it comes to regulations on land development, things that we've seen here. Because of the comments that were taken from people here in the town of Rome, as well as Saratoga and other parts of the Central Sands, what our understanding is that the substitute amendment pulled that piece of that legislation, that piece of the proposal out. That bill, if you're wondering what it is, it's Senate Bill 464 and AB 582. They were really running it through quickly, so what we're going to be doing is verifying with Clean Wisconsin that indeed that's what the Senate substitute amendment does, to make sure that it's a much better bill. There's also, I know a number of you have been paying close attention to SB 72, the Miller-Mason bill. What that bill would do is set up science-based designation process for areas that have groundwater sustainability issues, such as the Central Sands. It requires the DNR to have a management plan for areas with problems, and it ensures that the DNR looks at cumulative impacts of wells and adverse environmental impacts on all the waters of the state. And it also puts a 10-year permit timeline limit for high cap wells, because right now wells permits run in perpetuity, and this would say that there's a 10-year limit to those permits. So as you can see, there is a lot of attention. The legislature is paying a lot of attention to groundwater issues across the state, but particularly here in the Central Sands. But we have a number of special interests in the state who are also wanting to keep things, as I said earlier, as they are, or taking us backwards in time. And I just really appreciate the fact that you're all here, you're staying involved and on top of this subject. You're going to continue to have to do that, because it's not only going to be this session, which will end really soon, but also in the following session as well. So again, I just thank you for your attendance today, and look forward to continuing to work with you to make sure that we properly manage our groundwater resources here in the Central Sands, as well as in the rest of the state. Thanks.